which is mind-blowing.
Well, and there was that one episode, that one series, Star Trek series, Deep Space Nine, where
right.
they encountered a species that did not have the dimension of time. For them, everything was now. They didn't know what time was. And it was very difficult to find the words to explain to them what life looks like from the perspective of someone living within time. You know, and so in a sense, in even doing today's show, we're trying to describe the indescribable. But I think there's a lot to be gained from opening our minds to the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
The tools, whether they're historically true or not, as long as they're emotionally and psychologically true, they can serve purposes of personal growth.
They offer a release, a very deep level of release, and a sense of not just an aha, but when there is that kind of release that's so profound and deep, it's as if more doors open that had been preventing a person from moving forward, or the ability to look at concepts in a different way, or even whatever they are, their relationships, some habit.
I imagine a lot of times it's very subtle. You know, that there's a definite shift in how you understand the world, but to try to put your finger on what it is very difficult. On a very simplistic level, an example of this might be, why do I always choke up every time a green Chevy drives by? Mm-hmm. You know, no rational explanation for it. And maybe at that point they encounter someone who's familiar with past-life regression therapy and just say, well, you know, I've always wondered. The wonder is enough to ask the question.
Yes.
You may or may not get an answer that relates to that. But it doesn't hurt to ask the question.
No, and to be open to the answer or the non-answer of the question. Sometimes questions are answered when they're meant to be answered, and sometimes you just need the patience, knowing that you're asking the question and you're getting closer to having the answer.
Well, and it may be that this whole thing of, in my silly example, choking up every time a green Chevy goes by, really served no more purpose in your life than to put you in touch with a past-life regression therapist who, in a particular session, identified a deeper issue that you hadn't even realized was there. But that when you resolve that issue, suddenly you're going through life finding opportunities that you didn't even notice before. And you're having the confidence to do things you wouldn't have attempted.
Yes. And bringing out strengths that you forgot.
Didn't realize you had.
That you had.
Yeah, or forgot. Of course, that could also be forgot from another lifetime, if you didn't even remember them in this lifetime until now. It's all possible. You know, like I tell lots of people when I'm in counseling, hold on to what's helpful and let the rest go.
Yes.
Hold on to whatever is helpful. You know, because ultimately we're still together, we're all on this path toward love and wisdom. You know, and that's at the heart of past-life regression therapy, too. This is not, remember your past lives, you can find out who to take revenge on. Right.
That's a TV show.
That's a TV show. Something sensational for Hollywood to deal with. What you deal with is people finding a greater sense of self.
Yes.
A greater sense of possibility in their lives. Not feeling like victims of a cynical world. Mm. It'd be very easy to feel that way.
Very easy.
I mean, human history is filled with victimizing situations.
Yes, and the effort it takes not to succumb to being a victim.
Mm-hmm. Or if you did, not to carry that feeling of being a victim to a future life.
Yes. And there's a lot of that. There's,
you know, why do you always act like the victim? Well, maybe it has nothing to do with anything that happened to you this time around. If the feeling persists and there's no other identifiable cause, it doesn't hurt to ask the question, what if?
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible? Whether the story is historically true or not. I mean, you and I were just talking a moment ago with someone who remembered living in the Victorian era.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we could go back to the records in whatever part of England and find her name and what date and here's the address, whatever, like they do in the TV show,
Mm-hmm.
it's not so much the point as what is it from that life that speaks to you now, and how does it speak to you now?
And knowing that your experience is unique to you, that it doesn't matter if you were Queen Victoria, and that's why the Victorian era speaks to you. It's not about prestige and great characters from history. It's the emotional content of that recollection and the experience of that recollection that will speak to you. And it's unique to you. It's nobody else has that experience. It is yours and yours alone. Which
of course raises the question how so many people could all claim to have been George Washington or whatever, whomever in history. Is it possible that soul material gets dispersed so that you can have multiple
George Washingtons?
Multiple George Washingtons in a later time?
Well, theoretically...
I don't know how we would even know, but has that idea ever come up?
Yes, and the quick answer is no. The caveat is that theoretically, if you had someone born in the early 1900s who was indeed George Washington, and then you had someone in the late 1900s who was indeed George Washington, given lifespans, then, the same
But
soul.
if we have 20 people alive today who all claim to have been George Washington, some of them are sincerely self-deceived?
Yes.
But it's not for either of us to say who.
No.
Which again goes back to my point that it's not about whether it's historically true.
Right.
It's about whether it's psychologically and emotionally true, because this is not, I was George Washington, so you have to listen to me.
Right.
This is, I was George Washington, and this is what I experienced, and this is the emotional issue I want to resolve that I was not able to resolve in that lifetime.
Yes, and again, it's not about being the famous person. It's about the truth of the truth of who you are, the truth of yourself. And as you may know, as you experience life, it's not so great to be a celebrity. Mm. And there are extremely rich lives lived out of celebrityhood.
Okay.